Hello and welcome. Man, I just got that tweet off at the nick of time. That was a buzzer beater, a classic winner buzzer beater by me tweeting out the link to this Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk presented by Southeast Iowa Union. I am a company man today wearing my wearing my shirt, so I didn't do that on purpose really, but
I want to get me one of those.
You don't have one of those?
No, that was before my time.
You should walk off the set right now and demand that if you're not going to get treated like the rest of us employees and get your shirt, then you're not going to be doing these podcasts anymore.
That'd be a good idea.
Anyway, I'm Andy Kretzinger. This is Hunter Muller. That banter was brought to you by Andy and Hunter.
Yeah.
And we got Nick Steffens on the ones and twos today. We're a little scatterbrained a little bit because we're early today.
Yep.
Just 15 minutes. We got a college signing to go to at 3:15. Shout out Carter Amos of Mount Pleasant's getting a sign today.
Some baseball.
And Mount Mercy, some baseball. So, but we're here on Washington Live's YouTube and Facebook and Spotify, video and audio. Also the Facebooks of Fairfield and Mount Pleasant Live. So if you're, we should do a contest one day on the Facebooks. So you can watch or share the most on the three of them, and then we'll give them.
Well, yeah, so what are we going to give them?
Give them extra sports coverage. They could be on the top of the sports page.
Yeah, we'll give them extra sports coverage.
So we can really give away. But we're here. We're talking about a little high school sports. Wednesdays at 2 o'clock, except today's at 1:45. And we're deep in the winter, and it was a crazy week, especially on Friday.
Yeah.
We both had a couple of rivalry games, and I'm going to start with mine over here because it was Mount Pleasant versus Mount Pleasant versus Fairfield Day. And I'll talk about the boys' game because you were at the girls. And it was a game where you had one team in Mount Pleasant trying to stay on the top line in the Southeast Conference and, stay with Washington, who are they tied with, and Burlington's played one less game, but basically because of the loss column. And you had another team, Fairfield, trying to not only kind of wreck that for Mount Pleasant a little bit, but keep in it a little bit because they were down 2 games going in. And after a strong start from the Fairfield Trojans, it was the Mount Pleasant Panthers 57-48, winning the latest edition of the rivalry. Actually, it was a little payback, actually, because Fairfield beat Mount Pleasant on Mount Pleasant's court last year, and it was Mick it was a milestone win. I don't want to say how many wins it was. It was something 100, but I don't want to say the wrong number. So, But Fairfield in that game started out super good, 19-9 Fairfield after one quarter. Everything was working. Max Wheaton had 6 points really early. The flow of the game was a Fairfield flow. They were making shots. They were getting the ball inside, getting easy buckets, exactly what they wanted to do. And then as the game churned on, in the second quarter, you started to see it. Mount Pleasant came within 3. They were getting those steals and run-out layups that Mount Pleasant has kind of made their forte a little bit this year. And they eventually took the lead, and they were leading 40-32 after 3 quarters. And I ended up taking this one by 9 points. So another big one for Aiden Ashton, who scored 17 points. So Aiden Ashton has actually had a pretty good game against Mount Pleasant's 2 chief rivals because he had a really good game against Washington, too. Peyton Hagen's 16 for Mount Pleasant. J.J. Lane, who was sick leading up to the game, according to Coach Flattery, he's still somehow managed to drop 18 points on old Mount Pleasant, and Max Wheaton ended up with 14. So those are a lot of your usual suspects, but a huge win for the Mount Pleasant boys. Standings-wise, that sets up something exciting on Friday that we'll talk about a little later. But
yeah, and on the girls' side, obviously, you mentioned playoff implications. This is another one here, more so for Mount Pleasant because they're trying to stay. Everyone's right now is trying to stay up with Keokuk. Keokuk's 5-1.
Yep.
I believe it's Mount Pleasant and Fort Madison both 4-2.
Yeah, Fort Madison's actually 5-1 too. Varsity Mount has it wrong. Okay. They gave them a loss, conference loss, when they were playing somebody that was like Holy Trinity or something. So
got you. So right now Mount Pleasant's sitting in third. Trying to. Hoping one of those teams loses. Keokuk's one loss is Mount Pleasant. So, I was talking to Coach Watson about that, thinking about, that second matchup. And obviously they get Fort Madison too. But, back to the Fairfield one. Another big win for Mount Pleasant in Southeast Conference play, 60-25 over the Trojans. Really, right from the jump, it was all Mount Pleasant. The Panthers led 19-1 after just the first quarter. It was kind of one of those situations. They ran the press early. Fairfield struggled getting the ball, bringing the ball up court, breaking that press. Led to a lot of easy baskets. Tristan Shaw was hitting shots early. Andrea Lopriato got kind of going later in the game off steals. She was living inside. And it was really an all-around great, team win for Mount Pleasant. This one, as I said, they led 19-1 after one, outscored Fairfield 21-10 after the second. took a 40-11 lead in the half, and for Fairfield, it only got worse from there. Mount Pleasant outscored them 12-0, held Fairfield scoreless in that third quarter, 52-11 after 3, and then in the fourth, Fairfield ended up taking the fourth 14-8, but obviously the damage had been done. Andrea Lopriato, as I mentioned, got going really later in the second quarter into the second half. She finished with 21, pretty efficient from the field, 7 for 10. Andy Scott with a nice little 14 points there, and Tristan Shaw with 11. And so all around big win, as I mentioned, playoff implications. Mount Pleasant has the chance to take it. They're going to see those two teams at the top, and obviously Fairfield kind of on the outside looking in. They need to start winning some games, this week pretty much to try to get back into it, and they're going to need some help from the other teams as well. So
yeah. Well, yes, speaking of Mount Pleasant, I actually saw them on Monday. They had a rare non-conference Monday game against Danville, and it was 65-30 Mount Pleasant. Lopriato and Scholl combined for 44 points, 25 from Lopriato and 19 from Tristan Scholl. Lopriato ended up with 25 points, 16 rebounds, and 9 steals. So flirted with a triple-double a little bit over there. Yeah, they're playing really well. They're big scorers. They're scoring. They're doing really well at the press. Mount Pleasant is now, so they're one back of Fort Madison and Keokuk. They've lost twice to Fort Madison.
Okay.
Fort Madison plays Keokuk this Friday, and so Mount Pleasant's best shot would be, unless they can get help from maybe Washington or somewhere along the line, one of these teams they could beat, one of those Lee County teams. They need Keokuk to win on Friday, then to turn around and beat them next time around. So Keokuk did beat Fort Madison, and I think Fort Madison's had a little injury bad luck since they played a couple of our teams earlier, so definitely doable for the Mount Pleasant girls. But I mentioned that they're chasing Keokuk.
Yep.
And somebody else had to play against Keokuk 2 games in 5 days for the Washington girls basketball team.
Busy.
So busy. Well, and it's been a busy little schedule here for Washington because they had to play 4 games in 7 days or something like that. And last night in Keokuk, 58-35 to the Chiefs. And a few days before that, Washington played at Keokuk, 47-28. So the game in Keokuk last night for the Washington girls was just something about Keokuk. They're tall and they press and they're lengthy, and you just can't score on them, especially in that first half. And Washington kind of fell down double digits early. They couldn't quite figure out their offense, and Keokuk just grinded away, and they had, I think, an 11-0 lead before Kaylin Long came in and splashed a 3. And Kaylin and Adeline Long both hit a couple of threes apiece, I believe, in the first half. So Washington eventually kind of got some offense going, but when you're going against the number 1 team in the conference, going down double digits isn't exactly the formula for success. So last night for Washington, Adeline Long ended up with 12. Leighton Messner and Kaylin Long each had 8, and McKenna Conrad had 3 there. So just hard to score against Keokuk. And actually, they put up more points last night than they did against Keokuk on Friday, where Kendall Henriksen led with 6 points. So that shows that they didn't get anybody over 7 against Keokuk last time around. So kind of a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, Keokuk's a tough team. We've seen that in the past years. Obviously, they've been up at the top, and this year, obviously, I mentioned Mount Pleasant getting the better of them with their one conference loss there. So, I mean, looking at Mount Pleasant, obviously Washington's improved so much, but if like I said, if you're Mount Pleasant, definitely a winnable game there, and you're win that. Like I said, they win this game against Fort Madison, and then they win this game against Fort Madison and then turn around and beat them, and it's like feeling pretty good about yourself.
Yeah, you are. Well, and I liken the Washington girls to where the Fairfield boys are now, where they're out of the championship race at this point. But the Washington girls could beat any of those 3 teams. They're good enough. They played Mount Pleasant really close. They played Fairfield or Fort Madison pretty close. They don't play Keokuk anymore, and they don't play Mount Pleasant anymore. So Mount Pleasant could hope for some luck, some help from their rivals, and when Washington plays Fort Madison, however short-handed Fort Madison could be in that one. So
and Fairfield's looking at the Fairfield boys, they're kind of in the same state as we saw them last year. I was talking to Mick last year, and he said, I believe they had it was either 4 or 5 wins, and he said we might be the best 4 or 5 win team in the state because like all their losses were like less than 4 points or whatever, in single digits at least.
Yeah.
But so I mean, you can't sleep on those teams obviously because I mean, they're right there in the end. Just a couple plays here and there, a couple baskets go the other way, and could be a different result.
Those are the two chaos teams, and the Fairfield boys and the Washington girls are the two teams that they can't win it, but they can cause some disruptions. And Fairfield boys have even more chances because they've got I guess they got Burlington this Friday.
Yeah, they'll play Mount Pleasant
and they still have
again.
to play Mount Pleasant again. So they're done with Washington. And speaking of the Washington boys, they were in Keokuk on Friday night. Just like Mount Pleasant, they needed to go in and get a win to stay atop the SEC. They ended up winning that 69-45. It was kind of close at halftime after leading 20-8. Washington kind of dipped down a little bit, and Keokuk was able to make it a 29-23 game at halftime. So a little run there, but third quarter happened, and Washington took off again. Ethan Patterson, 31 points. He hit 8 3-pointers. Only took 12, so He was absolutely on fire. One of those games, and Logan McDowell, who, as everyone knows, is the one younger kid in the rotation. So
Doesn't look like
he's a future
kid,
of the team. Yeah, that's right. None of them look young. They're about as tall as an NAIA college team,
right,
as far as the guards and stuff. Avery Six had 10. So another big win for Washington, and they are 5-1. And Mount Pleasant is 5-1. And we mentioned Burlington's a half game behind them, but Friday night in Washington, our two first place teams are going at it. Mount Pleasant got the better of them the first time around, but the winner of that will kind of have, I wouldn't say a stranglehold by any means of the conference because Burlington is really good, but it's certainly going to be a game where whoever wins that will be 1 or 2 away from a conference championship. So Washington's going for 4 in a row. Mount Pleasant's going for the first since their state tournament teams a few years ago. Yep. So I'd imagine as far as atmospheres are concerned, that's going to be one of the best.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna be an interesting kind of run towards the postseason and obviously these teams all have, they're all worrying about probably beyond that, but that's a nice first step, to looking towards the postseason, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah, and I'd say even looking towards the postseason, the districts and brackets and stuff like that are coming out in the next few weeks, and I would say this game on Friday is big into determining, that might be a 2, 3, 4 seed somewhere in that little area between those two teams. So speaking of atmospheres, we're going to take a little commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about one of the most anticipated doubleheaders of the entire year. And Hunter will tell you a little bit about Waco and Winfield Mount Union. So small school fans, we're going to get you on the other side of the break. We still got wrestling to go and stuff like that. So 2 minutes, we'll see you.
Yep. Federation Bank is a locally owned bank providing award-winning customer service. We believe that we are more than just a federation of banks, but a federation of communities, serving Brighton, Richland, Wellman, Washington, Iowa. Federation Bank's highly skilled staff is here to make sure you are able to accomplish your personal and professional goals, whatever they may be. Federation Bank, your family bank.
Hospice isn't a place, it's a type of care that focuses on living. Servicing a 7-county area, the Hospice of Washington County staff of nurses, social work, hospice aides, spiritual and grief support, volunteers, music and massage therapists are able to provide free end-of-life care where the patient lives. We write wills, give consent for organ donation, but rarely is there a plan for what we would want the final phase of our lives. At Hospice of Washington County, we encourage our patients to be in charge of their healthcare decisions while maintaining quality of life.
At the Capper Auto Group, we put our customers' needs first and understand that everyone is as different as the vehicle they select. We offer new Ford, Chevrolet, Buick, GMC, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram vehicles in a friendly environment that puts you in the driver's seat. When it comes to service, we maintain factory-trained technicians and competitive pricing. The Capper Auto Group still believes that service after the sale provides the best customer experience. Come see the Capper experience for yourself.
Tammy takes the time and has the personal interest in each one of us. I don't worry about what's going to happen because I know my policy is taken care of.
She pulls what I need and puts it together, which is the program I get from her.
Every year she calls around September or so and says, there's changes again, and I'm going to do the best thing for you. It's been perfect. She does a great job.
And we're back. I was gonna jokingly mess with these notepads over here. I saw Jaron, who hosts the Washington news shows and stuff on this channel, that I was gonna that we share a seat. We're seat sharers. He owns JP, and I was eating there for New Year's, and so I'm gonna need to start making him notes over here. He can, we can be like, high school friends passing notes back and forth. We are here on Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk Live with Andy and Hunter and Nick, and we are about halfway through. If you're tuning in at 2 o'clock because you got that little alarm that says 2 o'clock, that's when Sports Talk starts. Might have to rewind this a little bit. That's a good thing about YouTube and Facebook.
Right.
We started a little bit early today, so if you're jumping in here, we talked about Mount Pleasant, Washington, and Fairfield basketball, and now we're going to talk about, as I said before the break, one of the more anticipated games, the Super Conference North Division on the line. At least the stranglehold of it. Maybe not mathematically, but and the favorites came out, Waco and Winfield Mount Union last night. Can you tell us about those?
Well, you mentioned anticipation. Obviously, you look at both boys and girls season on both sides, and both teams have given each other probably the closest game of the season. In terms of Waco, I guess we'll talk about the girls first. With the Winfield girls, obviously now rated number 10, Class 1A. Their closest game up until this point, up until last night, was Waco. That was a 7-point win for the Wolves back on December 6th. That was 46-39 final in that one. Tonight, a little larger margin for the Wolves. 61-40 over the Warriors. Winfield pretty much jumped out. They like to score in bunches. They kind of did that in the first quarter there, led 22-12 after one. And, in each quarter, as the quarters went on, it was kind of like a back and forth kind of game. Waco would take the second, Winfield bounced back and win the third, and Waco came back, won the fourth. But the difference was that the margins in those first and third quarters for the Wolves was just too much to overcome. And Waco, like I said, outscored Winfield 11-9 in the second. At the half, Winfield only led 31-23. But Winfield came out in the third quarter, 22-4 in that third, and that just that put them up 53-27, and the deficit was just too great for Waco. They came back with a 13-8 fourth, as I mentioned, 61-40 final in that one, and a huge win for the Wolves. They stay undefeated, 15-0 now. Waco's 12-2, 2 losses to Winfield,
and about 9 wins in between.
9 wins in between that. 2 great teams going at it. Obviously, Winfield has high hopes, as does Waco. Keaton Townsley leads Winfield on the night, 16 points. Brady Buffington, 15. Josie Nelson, 10. For Waco, Ella Kissel, name we always called, 19 points. Grace Coble, 9. And Katie Lichty ended with 6. So another great game out of those 2 teams, with Winfield coming on top.
Yeah, I think Winfield scored the first 11 points of that game too. They had a really, which you're on the road at Waco, at a rival. That's another situation where Winfield has just seemed to answer the call. They did that against Mediapolis, where those are the games you figure, undefeated or not, those are the ones that you might have a little trouble, at least stumble early, and Winfield Mount Union is unshaken so far this season. So I don't know if that's the last time Winfield and Waco will play. That could be a postseason matchup, and so can this boys game when they play.
One we'll be looking forward to for sure. But on the boys side, only 2 teams have been able to. It's kind of crazy. Only 2 teams have been able to stay with Waco in single digits, and that's Winfield and New London. The first time these two teams played, Waco got the better of Winfield, 42-38. So real tight margin there. Little more in favor of Waco last night. But after a kind of late third quarter push, Winfield gave him a little scare. Not too much, but still great showing for the Wolves there in that regard. But from the jump, it was pretty much all the Warriors. They're up to number 3 in the rankings, as I forgot to mention. 66 Waco, 48 Winfield. Final in that one. Waco 23-7 after the first, 14-6 in the second. They led 37-13 at the half. Really, Winfield just couldn't get an offensive rhythm on that. I was kind of talking about this over. It's like they kind of struggle against those teams that are long. Waco's long, pretty much at every position. They're quick.
The one team that can stand up to them at the rim a little bit.
Right. And they just couldn't get an offensive rhythm. And, they came out, whatever, Edward said to him at halftime, whatever he came up with, they showed it in that third quarter, because they came out and scored 20 points and only gave up 5 to Waco. And then that cut it to a 9-point game. That's where I mentioned the little scare coming in. It ended up being 42-33 heading into the fourth. And if, you're Waco, you're starting to believe a little bit. I mean, obviously you played with them the first game, and, you're down almost 20 there, and now you're back in within 9. And I believe they ended that third quarter on a 12-0 run. That's how they cut it back to 9. And but then in the fourth, Waco kind of came back to what they did in the first half. There ended at 24-15. Winfield was able to get some points, but so was Waco. So they kind of pulled away in the end there, and Waco gets their 14th straight win, and they're still rolling. And Winfield has 3 losses, and two of those are Waco, and the other one being Meepo. But so I mean, great game by 2 great teams, and like I said, Warriors come out on top again.
That's the 3rd win over one of our other really quality teams for Waco in the past couple of weeks. They beat New London. They beat Hillcrest Academy on Thursday. Went from Mount Union at the beginning of the year. They beat Waco, which is another one. So, or they beat Keota. Sorry, Waco beat Keota. So Waco has faced those teams, those other area teams that have a lot of talent, and they just are just like the Winfield girls. We've got clear favorites when these. I would sure hope that the Athletic Union and the Athletic Association just groups all the local teams together. I think we have good enough teams this year. So sometimes they'll look down here, and if no one's ranked, they'll throw somebody else from the that beep always gets me.
I know.
They'll throw somebody else from Cedar Rapids area or Des Moines area in as the 1 seed, but I think that there's a clear 1 seed in boys with Waco, and Winfield and Notre Dame are ranked 10 and 11 for girls. So I'd sure hope that that's going to be what happens.
That matchup will be.
Yeah, and I don't know what the South standings looking like girls wise, but Winfield still has a big game in that one. In the Super Conference Showdown. So
because either way, it'll be West Burlington or Notre Dame, and West Burlington's 12th in 2A, and Notre Dame beat West Burlington already. So on both sides, both conferences, on both boys and girls side, there's great teams over there. So
yeah, for sure. Some other small school boys games. First off, last night there's another rivalry. New London and Danville, one of our better rivalries in the area, went to the old Tigers last night. They are rolling right now. Blaze Porter with 22 and Cade Benjamin 15 as New London knocks off Danville 53-37. Also, West Burlington over Van Buren County, another South Division game, 61-46. Van Buren County was only down 2 points at halftime. West Burlington is a team that we've seen just go crazy over there. They're undefeated in the South. They're ranked. So that was it's a little weird playing down there in Keosauqua. It's in the small towns, my old stomping grounds. I used to live in Van Buren County, and sometimes it gets a little scary down there, and it got a little scary for West Burlington. But Lucas Pett hit 4 3-pointers, scored 15 points. Isaac Loeffler also scored 15 last night. So Mid Prairie and West Branch, the Golden Hawks have struggled with West Branch this year. They can't quite figure them out. 64-44. West Branch has been one of the few River Valley teams that has had Mid Prairie's number this year. So they're down in a South Division showdown. In the Sickle East, Keota 68, Belle Plaine 56. I'm not sure if mathematically if Keota has wrapped up the East Division in the Sickle, but they might as well have because they've been I think I've said rolling a lot the last few minutes, but they are rolling. Teams in the other Sickle
We got some teams that are rolling.
We got some rollers over here. Hillcrest Academy 61-50 over Lone Tree, a Lone Tree team that's looked pretty good lately. Luke Schock had 21. He's been on fire. I saw him against Winfield a couple weeks ago, and he was probably the most on player in that game. Pekin 65-29 over the Columbus Wildcats. So that's another one for Pekin.
Pekin's been playing real well.
Pekin has been playing really, really well. They've played really good teams close. Yeah. They lost to Winfield really close, and then teams that are below them in the standings, they seem to now be pulling away from. So Pekin's going to be one of those dangerous teams. I can't wait till that bracket comes out. And then Highland had Louisa Muscatine last night. Louisa Muscatine's another North team that's kind of seen a step up because of Ty North up and Louisa Muscatine 62-23. Highland can't quite get that first North Division win, so we'll see. They're still hunting. They're still in the hunt for that first win, and that's all we had for. I didn't get a Cardinal Eddyville score. Eddyville Vicksburg is very good at boys basketball this year, and I think that they won last night, but haven't got a final score on that yet. What about the girls?
And on the girls' side, kind of the same teams you mentioned. Highland girls 48-45 in overtime over Louisa Muscatine. Real tight game down to the wire. And Highland was able to pull it out with an 8-5 fifth quarter, you could say, in that one, the overtime period in that one. Sarah Burton, she's been stellar all year on the stat sheet. She had 26 points in that one. Pekin 45 over Columbus 24. The Panthers took the first 11-8, the second 9-4, the third 11-2, and the fourth 14-10 on their way to win. Sarah Vela, Ariana Vergara each finished with 10 points in the loss for Columbus. Mid Prairie, you mentioned Mid Prairie and West Branch. On the girls' side, Mid Prairie pulls out a 46-37 win over the Bears. The Golden Hawks were outscored 16-10 after one. But they turned it around with an 18-5 second, and they took a 28-21 lead into the half. And same story with West Branch coming into the third. They outscored them 12-2. The Golden Hawks 12-2 in that one, and then they held a 33-30 lead heading into the fourth. And then once again, Mid Prairie comes in that second period there and wins it 16-4 to end it. So it's we're kind of seeing them. Get slow out of the gate in the opening, or the start of the half, and kind of end strong there, which is, win's a win, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
But Nora Pennington finished with 9 points for the Golden Hawks. Mara Jones and Kylie Reiner each finished with 8. Keota 49-36 over Belle Plaine. Keota led Belle Plaine by just 2 at the break, 2018, and then Keota kind of dominated from then on out. They dominated the third 16-5. Made it 36-23 to start the fourth, and then both teams ended at 13 all in that fourth quarter. So Keota with a nice little win there for them. And then you mentioned Cardinal versus Eddyville Blakesburg. EBF is good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah,
the girls squad's rated number 4. It was 74-26 Rockets in that one. They led Cardinal 32-5 after the first. And then they took the second 14-11, and then they were outscored in the second half 28-10. So tough loss for Cardinal there, but a really, really, really tough team there.
Yeah, that was a really tough team.
And then West Burlington, we mentioned both of those squads being good. The West Burlington girls are rated number 12. They defeat Van Buren 61-37. The Warriors were outscored 17-4 in the first. They won the scoring battle in the second 11-10, but couldn't gain much ground. They couldn't get enough scoring there to get back on top. And then at the half, Van Buren County trailed 27-15. In the second half, West Burlington outscored Van Buren County 34-22. Ivy Davison led the Warriors with 14 points. Annabelle Kornmeyer with 8, and Marley Mertens had 7. In the last game here, we've got Lone Tree against Hillcrest Academy. Obviously, been a little struggle this season for Hillcrest Academy there. Lone Tree's been one of those teams in the north to kind of see a lot of improvement this year. But they down the Ravens 71-29. The Ravens were outscored 27-10 in the first and 18-7 in the second. They trailed 45-17 at the half, and then the Lions took the third 23-9, and then both teams just scored 3 points in that final quarter. So a loss there for Hillcrest Academy in that one.
You reminded me, you were talking about one of the Van Buren and West Burlington games. You reminded me to check the standings for the South Division, because we were talking about who Winfield was in line to play in the shootout. Right now, Burlington Notre Dame is 9-1, and Mediapolis is 10-2, and West Burlington is 8-2, and West Burlington and Mediapolis stop to play on Friday. So right now, it's Notre Dame is the favorite in the South right there. So sometimes when our area teams start to fade out of the standings a little bit, I lose sight of them a little bit. But looking back, that looks like it. So a lot of ranked teams in the Super Conference for girls, as they usually are. The Super Conference is a good girls basketball area. So that's it for our basketball, our high school basketball right now. But we've got another commercial coming up. So all you commercials lovers that sit there and wait for us to stop talking so you can see what kind of deals there are on our sponsors. It's your time of the show, and in a couple minutes we'll have a little bit of more wrestling talk, and then we'll speed down the road responsibly to go to this college signing. So we'll see you after 2 minutes.
Protection is important, especially when you're talking about your dreams, which is why we're going to keep you covered with plans that can save you up to 23% when you bundle your home and auto. That's protection.
Family owned and operated by Andy and Sarah Ross, Ross Auto has been your vehicle repair and maintenance headquarters since 1935. We specialize in all makes of cars and light-duty trucks. With our variety of available services, let us help you keep rolling and your vehicle operating efficiently. Services include general auto repair, alignments, brakes, fuel injection, and more. Schedule your appointment today at 319-653-5656. That's 319-653-5656.
Welcome back to Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk. We are live here on Washington Live, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Fairfield Live, Facebook, and Mount Pleasant Live, Facebook.
Well done.
It's simpler than I used to say it when I used to just rattle off every single entity. But we've talked about some basketball, Hunter.
Yep.
And we're going to talk a little bit about some wrestling, and we're going to go back in time. So get in your time machine, because we're going to go to Thursday night, which is Southeast Conference Wrestling Night. And we mentioned that Mount Pleasant and Washington will be playing in some big games on Friday on the basketball court. And Washington hosted Mount Pleasant in the first ever live stream Southeast Iowa Union sports broadcast that we had down there at right across the road at Washington High School. And they broadcasted the Washington-Mount Pleasant duel, which was part of a triangular. Washington 54-27 over Mount Pleasant in that one. There were a couple of fun matchups there, and Washington got the best of them. Washington also beat Muscatine later that day, 40-39. They had to win the last three matches by pin to beat Muscatine. Lane Schrock had a huge pin against a kid that he had beaten earlier, but he hadn't pinned this year. He beat him by major decision. Chase Greiner and Jude Carter also had wins, so they won by 1 point. They were down 15. 6 times 3 is 18. They were down 17 going into the last thing against Muscatine, and the Demons had a nice night too. They beat a rival in Mount Pleasant, and they won basically at the buzzer, with those 3 pins. So that was a pretty exciting one over there. I also, back to the Mount Pleasant Washington match, there were a couple of really fun. Bowen Davis versus Lane Schrock was an overtime match. It was the first match of the day, so the very first wrestling match that we've broadcasted was a overtime sudden victory. Bowen Davis got out of that one, but it was a really, really cool little back and forth. And there were a lot of forfeits with sickness and stuff like that. It only took 45 to 50 minutes. So hopefully we'll be broadcasting more of these duels here pretty soon. And I'm sure that we probably would have broadcast the whole triangle. Muscatine was a late ad, but so the Demons got it done on Thursday night. A Southeast Conference win. Our area teams are kind of out of it because of a team you're about to talk about. Fort Madison hasn't lost in the Southeast Conference. They went into Fairfield last night and they did their Fort Madison-y thing. So
last Thursday, Fort Madison's kind of the premier kind of wrestling program right now in the Southeast Conference, and they kind of showed why against the Trojans last week. It was a 57-12 victory for Fort Madison over Fairfield in that one. Fairfield had won just two matches on the night. Fort Madison came in, won 8 straight matches before the Trojans got their first win in the form of Cale McCabe at a 113. Pretty dominant performance for him on the mat. He pinned Tatum's, I guess I'm going to mess up his name, Shelecic in 48 or 45 seconds. So a real nice win for him. He's kind of been impressive. I believe, I have to double check, I'm pretty sure he's a freshman. He's shown out in his first year. And then the Trojans' second victory came in the form of Julian Pumphrey at 138. He did battle with Fort Madison's Calvin Johnson. Me and another guy were kind of laughing at
Calvin
Johnson,
Megatron.
The Megatron, a nice little match. He was able to kind of flip Johnson around late in the match. Ended up pinning him in 3 minutes and 25 seconds. Overall as a team, tough match. Couple nice wins. A couple matches could have went the other way. Obviously, Cason Miller had a tight 3-0 decision loss. Aiden Lyons was, I believe, I've had to double check, he was winning his match 7-6, and then ended up getting pinned in 4 minutes and 50 seconds. So, besides Fort Madison being really good, there were some good matches that Fairfield kind of had the potential to win, just didn't go their way, and they get 2 wins on the night, but big win for the Bloodhounds.
Sure. And some wrestling that happened this weekend. Washington won the Waco Invite by 4 points here over Mediapolis, 166.5 points over Mediapolis, and the Waco Invite. Mid Prairie got 4th in that thing. They Waco sure invited a lot of teams over here. New London 8th, Highland 10th, Waco 11th, and then Fairfield and Mount Pleasant were both in Centerville for the Big Reds invite. Fairfield got 4th in that. Columbus WMU is also there. They got 8th, and Mount Pleasant got 13th or 14th in that one. And then a little girls wrestling. Mid-Prairie hosted a tournament. Yep. Waco was there. You might have a
I pulled it up. I forgot I did this, so I'll just read through this real quick here. Mentioned Mid-Prairie's got had their home tournament. Mm-hmm. It was Mid-Prairie, Waco, Washington, Mount Pleasant, all in action at the Invitational. Mid-Prairie took first in their team tournament, 138 total points. Waco finished 7th. SIP was 72 points. Washington finished 10th with 36 points, and Mount Pleasant took 12th with 26 points. For the Golden Hawks, Gabby Robertson took first in the 100-pound match, and Ellie Brenneman took first in 135. And let's see here. For Waco, Riley Rice was the lone first-place finisher at 110. Washington was led by Tegan Selentich at 155. Jaden House led Mount Pleasant with the fourth-place finish at 130. And then Highland was the only other Union area team to compete over the weekend, and they were at a huge tournament up in Oline. Their girls invite. That's a little ways to go.
Yeah, that's a long ride, guys.
But they took 17th. Angelina Rolling was the Huskies' highest placing finisher on the day. She took first at 115. So some girls action over the weekend, and a lot of success as you can see.
I think I mentioned last week, but one of the coaches was talking about how tired so the girls have been going to these tournaments on Saturday, and there's only a handful of tournaments available, so they're going, as you see, the whole line's a long ways away. They're going like minimum an hour 45. I guess Highland and Mid-Prairie both host tournaments, and does Waco host a girls tournament? I don't think so. So you're usually going a long way, and then you're going back and wrestling in some dual matches during the week. So we've been a little worn out. Hopefully, as the girls wrestling rosters keep bulking up as they have the last couple of years, hopefully that'll make more tournaments spread out. So, I think that's pretty much it for our high school coverage. Iowa Wesleyan went 3-1 in basketball games. Iowa Wesleyan men have won 19 in a row now.
Yeah, 19. Yeah.
And the women split this weekend. They're still 2-0 in CAC play. They'll play on Friday night against a team that I just forgot for a second. Here we go. Haskell Indian Nations University. Haskell. I knew it was coming. It's kind of their CAC rival. Last year there were a couple of close games against those guys. That's on Friday at Rubel Arena, same night as a lot of those high school games. And then you're going to...
What are they rated now? They were rated top 5, I think.
Or
6, the girls.
Yeah, the girls might be down to 12th-ish.
12th, is it?
They're going to wrestle tonight, and Hunter is going to be there, and they are going to...
Canceled.
Breaking news.
Canceled.
Breaking news on Southeast Iowa Union Sports Talk.
Canceled, isn't it?
I was getting ready to tell you guys about Iowa Wesleyan, who ranked 12th. I was correct. Wrestling against Iowa Central. And for the second week in a row, the Wednesday women's wrestling duel has been postponed. So bad news there, because we were excited to finally go.
Hunter is not going to watch Iowa
Hunter
Wesleyan.
will not be going. There's been a schedule change. This was released today, so this is breaking news. And it is weather. Postponed due to weather concerns, because it's going to storm pretty bad tonight, even though it's an Iowa versus Iowa team. Going down that highway.
Especially if it's raining and gets cold.
Out of here. Yep, so no Iowa Wesleyan women's wrestling tonight. That's depressing. And now I'm just sad. But the men are wrestling Cornell tomorrow at 7 o'clock. So, and then there's also some wrestling. You'll be at Fairfield Mount Pleasant High School wrestling tomorrow. So a lot of wrestling. So yeah, sorry. Well, look at that. Breaking news. Unless you follow any of the Iowa Wesleyan social media or ever go to their website, we just broke that news that women's meet tonight postponed.
Be safe out there, folks.
Gonna end this on a sad note. So we'll see you guys next week.
Next week.